You're telling me you know a technique that can turn a child today into a genius tomorrow?
Well, yes. Well, let's put it this way: if you follow the status quo, your child will not be a genius. Now, let's go into the future to adults. The biggest thing holding back adults is something I call the following mode. Now, think about it. When you were a child, this is how the following mode develops. When you're a child, you mimic those around you, your parents, your older siblings, then the world around you. As you enter school, you do what your teacher tells you to do. You behave. They tell you to follow. You follow what they tell you. When you go to church, you follow what the clergy tells you to do. When you go into the army or the armed forces, you follow what your superiors tell you to do. When you get a job, you follow what your boss tells you to do. When you get old enough to vote, you follow what the politicians tell you what to do. So you're in this following mode, which is very limiting. And in fact, I think that's the biggest scourge of human development is the following mode. And it links way back to prehistoric times when we were animals of nature and we would just follow Mother Nature, basically. So the child will not become a genius as an adult if they are stuck in this damaging, limiting, following mode. So as a parent, what you want to do is to break your child out of the following mode.
How do you do that?
Well, here's a little simple technique. Your child comes home from school, and you say, "Hey, Danny, what did you do in school today?" And Danny says, "Well, we blah, blah, blah." And that's usually where the parent leaves it. They may say, "Oh, that's nice. Did you have fun?" That's usually where the parent will leave it.
Yeah.
But if you go one step further, and I'll explain why this changes everything, this very simple technique to say to your child, "What did you think about that?" And what happens now is the child, for the first time, is not just automatically repeating or automatically expressing what he saw. Instead, it forces him to go into his inner mind space.
Whoa.
To do a little introspection.
Okay.
And to start thinking subjectively instead of objectively, see, react, percept, see, react, tell. Now, what did you think about that? How did you feel about it? What did you think about that? Boom, you're sending them into their inner mind space. You're breaking them out of the automatic following mode. 3,000 years ago, man used to be in this reactive, what was called a bicameral state, where he automatically just reacted to the events happening around him. So everything was just basically two-dimensional, just see, react, hear, react.
Right, like a monkey or a dog or just any animal.
Correct. And that is how our minds started before we discovered how to become conscious and go into our inner mind space, which was never there before in the bicameral state, and begin to introspect and think subjectively in order to make decisions and start controlling our lives as conscious beings. The same basic thing is happening now with your child when you spring that question on your child. What did you think about that? Well, for the first time, your child's going to stop and there'll be a little moment of being startled because now your child is being asked to think.
Wow.
To introspect, to think subjectively, to have an opinion about something, as opposed to just perceptually saying, well, this is what happened, and then telling it.
That's
It breaks
crazy.
them out of this sort of two-dimensional into more of a three-dimensional mindset.
That's crazy. And
Very
it
simple.
sounds so simple. But I see that, what you're saying. If you ask a child, how was your day? I learned this, I learned this, I learned this. What is that? That's just absorb and spit back out. Absorb, spit back out.
Yes,
Just like it's
yes.
so reactive.
Yes.
And you're being trained. And then just asking such a simple question breaks that. And then they need to actually think and integrate the knowledge and think for themselves rather than just repeat.
And that's the greatest gift you could give to your child. Parents can give this to their child because they are breaking their child out of this sort of this trap this following mode that's going to plague and haunt you for the rest of your life. If you can do this when they're children, you begin opening a different mind space in their heads of not following, but becoming a self-leader, a thinker, a fully conscious human being. Now, I want to warn you parents, this is what you're going to hear when you start asking your child this. You're going to hear when you say, what did you think about that? Or how did you feel about that? You're going to hear, I don't know. The reason you're going to hear, I don't know, right, it's because they're not used to. This is a whole new dimension that they're being asked to enter. Becoming a conscious being, a self-leader as opposed to a follower, is not an easy thing, particularly because at a certain age, children, they fit into the mold of a follower because they don't have an example around them of a self-leader. Because, yes, their parents are in a following mode. We all are, unless you learn Neothink, which are my techniques to break you out of the following mode into an integrating mode, a self-leader mode, which all your great superachievers are neo-thinkers. They've learned how to do this. Now, if you can change your child at a young age to become a self-leader, that child will grow up to be a genius. That child will grow up to be a superachiever. So most superachievers, as adults, go back into their childhood for these turning points that happen to them. Like Elon Musk with his fascination with space happened as a child. Henry Ford with his fascination of taking apart machines and putting them back together happened as a child. You could go down the list of superachievers. There's always something in their childhood. So as a parent, let's give that to our child. That's the greatest gift you can give them. That's the greatest gift you can give them, is to change the way their mind works into a self-leader mode. And that will lead to curiosity, which the child is quite void of that now. But if you open up his inner mind space so he starts becoming more conscious and thinking more, he will develop curiosity, greater and greater curiosity, which will lead him into a path, a vector, such as Elon or such as Henry Ford or such as Steve Jobs. So this is the great technique, the great gift that you can give to your child. The reason it seems so simple, but it's much more than the simplicity reveals, is that the great scourge of human limitation is this following mode. And you can get in early and just change that pattern in your child. And that is the gift you could give your child that could lead your child into becoming that superachiever, that genius in his adulthood.
Yeah, and get it while they're young and it's early versus their brain patterns just stay stuck their whole lives, which many people, unfortunately, are now.
That's very true. I mean, for an adult who moves to America from, say, a Latin American country, to lose their accent is nearly impossible. But you bring a Latin American child to America, and he just naturally loses that accent because of the brain patterns in our mind, in our brain. So, yes, break those patterns of a follower young, and look out when they become an adult. You could have a Steve Jobs on your hands. You could have an Elon Musk on your hands. You could have a Henry Ford on your hands. So this is my technique for helping children become geniuses.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, very simple. Most great techniques are actually quite simple because you get down to the fundamental underneath it all, and it just requires a little change there, and the trajectory will take you places.
That's crazy. Why don't people teach this? How come people don't know about this?
Well, because to you it seems like, in fact, this is something that I wrote about years ago. I call it the obvious theory. And a lot of the really consequential techniques and changes in our lives are quite obvious. They're right below our eyes. I can run down examples of throughout history that great breakthroughs oftentimes are right below our eyes, right beneath our our thought patterns. They're right there, but they're obvious, but we don't see them because it's not a matter of seeing it. It's a matter of making an adjustment up here in your mind. So it's how you see it. And once you see it in a different way, it's so obvious that it drives you insane that everyone's not doing it. And this is one of those examples of the obvious theory.
Right. That's crazy. You need to get this out to every parent.
Yes.
What? We've spent like 6 minutes here talking about it.
Could change all of your children's lives, our grandchildren's lives.
So that's how you do it with children. But if you're an adult, how do you break into that next mentality, into limitless thinking, which is the Neothink mentality?
You go and enroll in Neothink University. This is what I've been spending the past 45 years of my life, helping over 2 million people go through the process, pulling them out of the following mode, which is their trap, their stagnant routine rut. You know, people wonder, isn't there more to life? There's got to be more. I know there's more to life, but then they just get older and older, and then it's too late. So in Neothink U, I take them through the process of pulling them out of the following mode into the self-leader mode where great things can happen. Go to the link below, neothink.com. It'll lead you to Neothink University. So parents, use this technique on your children. It's going to benefit them beyond your wildest imaginations. And for you, go to neothink.com and find Neothink U and join, and let's break you free to do great things with your life, because yes, there is something more. There is something more to our lives.